Welcome back to the Everyday Saint podcast. It is Catholic communicator Eve Rosemary, and we are at the St. Francis Xavier Cabrini Shrine. And you might be thinking, Eve, haven't we already been there? We went to the St. Francis Xavier Cabrini Shrine on the West Coast in Colorado, and this week we are on the East Coast in New York City at the St. Francis Xavier Cabrini Shrine, which is where St. Francis Xavier Cabrini is entombed. So you get to see St. Francis Xavier Cabrini during this tour, and I'm so excited to bring you with, so let's go.
This mosaic tells the story of her life. The key thing is Leo XIII, to the east and to the west. But these are all just scenes from her life and iconic. Right? So the immigrants separated, Statue of Liberty. She arrived on March 31st, so we're coming up on the day that she arrived. Here she is, Sacred Heart, and look above, the Blessed Sacrament. And it's all of a piece. That's sort of the story of her life all together. So the shrine in New York is where the most of Mother Cabrini's remains are. So her body is entombed beneath the altar here. About 80% of her bones are here. And the face and the hands are made of wax so that she looks like she did when she died. And that helps us to approach her as a real person. One of the things I encourage people to do when they're here is, because they can approach her and they're here with her and she's in heaven with Jesus at the same time, that really changes your prayer life. It allows you to pray differently and on a deeper level. So we believe very strongly that what happens here is between the individual who visits and Mother Cabrini and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And I encourage people to, when they're here, to go as close as they want to visit her, because if you've come this far, you might as well get close. So in each of these side panels, you can walk around and read, but so this is a story about St. Joseph, and her, because I want people to have, people learn by stories.
The rest of her body is not incorrupt. Correct. It was just the heart. Why do you think that is?
Oh, she had that whole exchange of hearts thing with Jesus, just like Margaret Mary Alacoque. So, and I think when our hearts are so much like his, when we think about her compassion and why didn't she have compassion burnout? That's a phrase, a modern phrase. Where does that come from? And it's because it wasn't her compassion, it was his compassion flowing through her. Like, she was so out of the way. She had moved her ego out and was simply willing to let him act in her. So part of helping people know her is having second-class relics as well. So this is one of the most unusual second-class relics you're going to find. It's a carriage, which she drove herself. And so then this is the story back here. The carriage came down from West Park, which is where she had the large orphanage. These are actually the gates from the original mausoleum. You see the mausoleum here. And so that's what this exhibit, which is on how her body came to be here. And that's the high school chapel. This is where she was originally interred when she was, entombed when she came down. When she first came to the U.S., she came to New York. She originally wanted to be buried and was at the big orphanage upstate. But prior to her beatification, they realized that it was hard for people to get upstate. And so they moved her body down here into the high school chapel. And then after her canonization, on day one of her canonization, 45,000 people came to venerate her relics. And so when we do things, we do it from the perspective of stories. So this in here, you can see these are other first-class saints. Yeah, quite the collection. And then this video is the one about the miracles. So that's Sister Delphina when she was dying, like age 24, and that's her afterward. They're different things. So this actually is a kiddo from Pius X, because she knew many of the popes. But one of the things I love in here, if you look on this and here, this is her nightgown. This is her laundry mark. So in the days before you had Sharpies, And before you had little labels with your name on, they would label their clothing with laundry marks. So it was a Sacred Heart and the number 1, since she was the foundress. Although she would have said that Our Lady was actually the foundress, Our Lady of Grace. And then this is the exhibit on Mother Cabrini and home. But so this is all done nonlinear. It's not didactic. It's all done in stories with quotes. You learn about what hope looks like through the eyes of a saint, because we don't need to just say, here's what hope is. We have to see what that looks like when it's lived. Down here are the current miracle stories. Everything here is bilingual, English and Spanish. And that's the map of her travels that was submitted along with the cause for canonization. So, but you can read some of these stories.
Thank you so much for watching. It was so wonderful to be able to walk around with Julia, who's the director at the shrine. And we were actually able to sit down with Julia and uncover some of the untold stories, or maybe stories you haven't quite heard before about Mother Cabrini. You can check that out on the Everyday Saint podcast and follow along on the Everyday Saint on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for watching, and God bless you.